How can I reduce someone's workload if it's part of their job? Well, this is a question that we've been asked at Heads Up, and I've got Clare Fowler from Yes Law with me. Clare has decades worth of experience for employment law, and she's going to give us her insight on that. So, Clare, what do you think? How can you?
Well, ultimately, Sonia, you might not be able to. You might not have the resources. There might just be nothing you can take away from that person.
Sure, I can imagine quite a few people having a sigh of relief, because I think quite often what can happen is, if you think of particularly the role of teaching, yes, you're delivering lessons, you're marking, you're planning, there's a lot going on there. And actually, it's quite hard to make the job smaller than that in a lot of instances. And I say, actually, without the resources, schools don't have a spare teacher here, an extra capacity there. They're running tight ships.
Yeah.
So I guess this comes from a place of when we need to make reasonable adjustments, and schools do want to support their staff as best they can. They always come from that place. But what would you advise in this situation? Or what tips have you got that could help?
I think it is a really difficult situation, and I think you're right. You're likely to be having to think about this if someone is unwell or is not coping, and in a really difficult position. So I think what you need to start with is, what's my legal obligation here? If somebody has a condition that is a disability, then you are legally obliged as an employer to make reasonable adjustments to alleviate the disadvantage that they experience as a result of that disability. Now, the legal definition of disability is quite wide, so it might go far beyond what you think. It's essentially a physical or a mental impairment that has lasted or is likely to last for 12 months or more, that's having a substantial adverse impact on someone's day-to-day activities. So that potentially covers quite a wide range of conditions and could include things like stress and anxiety. But your obligation is to make adjustments that are reasonable, and reasonableness is considered in the context of your organisation, so an organisation of your size and resources. And also, in order to be reasonable, the adjustment has to actually alleviate the disadvantage that that person is suffering. So it's got to be something that is going to be effective. So if your employee is in a situation where they're actually too unwell to work at all, there isn't much you can do about that. So the obligation to make adjustments is something that you need to be thinking about when you're perhaps thinking about a phased return, or the person is improving, and hopefully able to engage with you in a productive discussion about what might help.
Great. So it really sounds like when it's not possible, either because of the nature of the work or just because of the resources available. If you're a tiny school, you might not have. If you're a big school, you might not have the resources available.
Yeah.
But where you can and where it's practical to do so, make those adjustments. But it's great to hear that actually it's not a kind of you must do this at all costs. That's not the case at all.
That's right. And I think what is important is to communicate about what the difficulties are from the school's perspective, and why there's a problem with resources, or why you're concerned that something might not actually be effective or suitable. So it's a conversation. It's not one-sided. It's supposed to be two-way. And if at all possible, you'll also get some input from a professional, such as an occupational health doctor or nurse, who might be able to understand a bit more about what might actually help. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is that there might be other things that you can do to support the person. Obviously, you'll want to understand exactly what it is about the job that they're finding so difficult. Is it a problem perhaps with time management or organisation? Could you help them with some training on that to help them get better at that? Is there someone in your setting who is brilliant at that and is really on top of everything? Could they provide some sort of mentoring or coaching for this person? But you need to get to the bottom of whether there's an underlying problem that's making things particularly difficult for this person. You might provide some kind of employee assistance program or helpline, or if somebody's really suffering, that they've got someone that they can talk to that's kind of external to the school, a friendly sort of voice to speak to. And the other thing is, I think that obviously this isn't legal advice, but if you are having to ask staff to take on additional things, you know, is there anything that can drop off the other end that you don't need anymore? You know, what are you actually doing with all this data that you're relentlessly collecting? Is it all necessary? So, and that's something that you can build goodwill by working with your staff on, you know, what are they finding useful? What's actually useful for them in the classroom? So there's lots of different ways of approaching this issue, I think.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Claire. Really helpful on lots of different angles. I won't go into what's going on with all the data that we're relentlessly collecting in school. That's a whole different topic and conversation. But thank you so much. I hope that helps you when you're faced with these challenges. Try and support your team, but also trying to make sure that you're running a school for the benefit of your children. And remember, we are very lucky to have Claire join us for our conference, Kindly and Effectively Tackling Underperformance in Schools. Claire will be sharing more of her wisdom and insights from many decades of employment law. We'll pop the link below, and there are more of these top tip videos for you on YouTube, so do check them out, and to help you keep up to date with them, make sure you subscribe.